Everybody, welcome back to another Master and Apprentice video and podcast. So as you guys can tell by the title today, we've got ourselves a new series. This series is going to be going over Lego investment. This is a big part of the Lego Star Wars, especially community. A lot of people these days get into it just for the investment, make money off of it, right? And if you're already just in that community in general of just collecting it, this is, I think, an important video just to kind of give you a rundown of how to and what to. So it's going to be either a 3 or 4 part series. I haven't decided quite yet, but it's going to be at least 3, and they're going to be going over different types and just mostly the details of it. Today we're going to be talking about the types and genre of Lego investment. This is talking mostly about, we're going to do mostly Star Wars, and that's really due to Star Wars is the most popular Lego brand or Lego genre subsection there is. We will talk about other ones briefly, but Lego Star Wars is their biggest one, so that's just going to be the most general example and prevalent thing to talk about. Within that, we have subgenres. We're going to be talking about all of those. Disclaimer, guys, we are not financial advisors. Me, Apton. This is just our opinion. All the information here is not any advice completely. It's just facts and our opinions per se. Some of it's advice. What we're going to do, and this is how each of these parts are going to go, is we're going to talk about the what are we talking about and why this is, why this affects it, why this is important. But without further ado, we'll get right into the what of today's video. So right off the bat, we're going to be talking about these subgenres. When you're talking about the different parts and aspects of collecting Lego and just investing in it, probably the most prevalent part are the genres. There's quite a few different ones, but you can kind of break it down to the movies, more selectively the original trilogy, the prequels, and the sequels, right? Then we have all the shows. We have Clone Wars, Rebels, The Mandalorian, right? Those are probably the 3 more popular shows. And there's little ones here and there, the Bad Batch, but they only have 2 of those sets. So each of these subsections are obviously part of the Lego Star Wars genre, but they're different, right? When you look at a Star Wars box, you can even see we have different subgenres. The Clone Wars, The Mandalorian. So there's genres within the genres, and those are prevalent and important because there's fan favorites. There's biased for fans. There's also bias with the actual developers, the people who build the sets. So it's just important to know the different subgenres and just pay attention to what's prevalent. More recently, The Mandalorian has been one of the more popular Star Wars media. And so there's a lot more Mandalorian sets. There's also a lot more popularity with that show. So the sets are a lot more popular, right? Whereas, let's say the sequels, they haven't really touched the sequels since the sequels released. So those sets haven't come out in a while. Those sets aren't popular right now. So knowing the different subgenres, just knowing what you're getting into, for instance, Star Wars, knowing the shows, the movies is important. Now kind of to the why. So the why, there's some more popular subgenres, and I'll explain in a second. But this is in no way a bias to me. This is just the correlation of when Star Wars came out, certain Star Wars shows or movies, and when Lego Star Wars came out. But the more popular ones, of course, for the Lego Star Wars for investing are going to be the prequels, the Clone Wars, right? And mostly due to that is because when Lego Star Wars came out, it came out in 1999. That was the first Lego Star Wars was released in 1999. If you know, the prequels were released, the first one, Phantom Menace, was released in 1999. So right at the beginning of Lego Star Wars, the prequels were coming out. They're correlated together. That's why they're one of the more popular sets. If you look through Bricklink or Brick Economy, you will see that the prequel sets are some of the more popular sets on there, along with Clone Wars, right? A lot of kids who collect Lego Star Wars grew up watching Clone Wars, right? They kind of just happened at the same time, right? The time Clone Wars came out was about 2008. Lego Star Wars was still in its first decade, so it was still relatively new. So it makes sense that Clone Wars and prequels are some of the more popular sets. Obviously, there's some other sets that are subgenres that are popular. Any of the original trilogy sets are always popular, but and this is where I was talking about the bias. A lot of the designers for Lego Star Wars are old or original trilogy fans, and so they make a lot more of those than they make of really any other set. Um, there's nothing wrong with that. The original trilogy has been around the longest, so there's the most content and media around that. But whereas let's say Clone Wars, they haven't made as many sets in Clone Wars, let's say, as the original trilogy. So there's supply and demand, but Clone Wars is probably going to be more popular than an original trilogy. So just knowing your information on these are the different subgenres, and then this is why they're popular, is going to be super important when you're looking to buy and invest in certain items. We'll kind of get into more, but a lot of sets, minifigures, for instance, clones are one of the more popular minifigures because they correlate to the Clone Wars. And the Clone Wars are one of the more popular subgenres because it was new when Lego Star Wars was new, right? Just like a lot of the collectible action figures were coming out in, let's say, the 80s and 90s, there was no other content. So the original trilogy ones were the more prevalent ones to collect. So they were the ones that you invested in, right? So that's kind of the same thing with Clone Wars and prequels. They came out at the same time as Lego Star Wars. And that group of people, the kids who started buying Lego Star Wars, it was aimed towards kids. They grew up with the Clone Wars and prequels. Not to say the other ones aren't popular, but those are the ones that are more popular, right? And knowing that, those are the ones you should aim to invest more towards. Quickly forgetting to add, it also depends on series that are finished. For instance, the Rebels series. All the sets from the Rebels are fairly popular because that series is finished. This isn't the same for movies because they continue to make sets for movies. They don't do the same for most shows like the Rebels, and probably the same to say for Kenobi or Bad Batch in years to come. There's obviously different types of other genres like Marvel, but Marvel is different in itself. Marvel sets usually get more popular when the medium is popular, right? When Marvel is popular, and Star Wars is kind of the same, but since Lego Star Wars is so popular in general, they're always going to be doing good. Whereas Marvel sets are more popular when Marvel is popular because the Marvel are a relatively new side of Lego. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at, maybe potentially buying or investing in some Lego Star Wars or Lego in general. Just looking at what are you buying? What is it connected to, right? Especially if it's a movie or a show, if it's got a lot of popularity behind it, Harry Potter, Indiana Jones, look at the history of that genre, within Lego, and you're going to find out a lot of what you want to invest in just from that alone. The next part, we're going to be talking about the minifigures and actual sets. So we'll talk more about that. That will kind of connect to today's video, but with that, we'll be doing that probably within the next month. So look out for that. If you guys enjoyed this, don't forget to hit that follow and download and like and subscribe. And with that, we hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.